If you pay close attention to numerology and you start to connect it with your life or the years, everything else that goes on, like the environment, the decisions that people make around you, and even the decisions that you make, like once you understand numerology, it'll start making a lot more sense. 2026 is the year number one if you break it down in numerology. And the way that you do that is that you have the year 2026, and then you're going to add up the 2, and the 6, which add up to 10. Then you break down the 10, it goes back down to 1. So 2026 energy is the number one, and number one represents newness, movement, the possibility of new things, but also independence, individuality, creativity, and it's a number that's rooted in essentially new opportunities. However, the way that I'm also picking up on it and kind of seeing things from with my intuition is that while it is a year for you to start something new, it could be the year that you also pick up something old that you put aside for a while and you're having new ideas for it. Essentially is like rebirthing your own project, rebirthing your own craft, whatever that is. Like if there's a career that you were into, you left and you want to go back to, like next year, 2026 is the time to do so. Now, it makes sense that 2026 is the year number one because 2025 was the year 9, and number 9 represents a cycle of completion, essentially things that needed to end ended. And with the way that things have been going, whether it's in your personal life or just in the world, it does feel like 2025 brought a lot of endings to people's lives in preparation for something new to begin in 2026, essentially like a new birth year, if that makes sense. Now, to see how this connects with someone personally, I can give an example for myself. 2025 for me was a year where I had to close out a lot of relationships, whether they were friendships or they weren't platonic, whatever it is. I had to close out a lot of relationships that were not serving me anymore, and that I was sticking around because I essentially felt bad about leaving people, because nobody likes that feeling of leaving somebody behind. But then I started to recognize that I wasn't growing in these relationships. I wasn't learning anything new about myself or about them. It was just a very steady line that honestly, sometimes instead of having peaks, it had like little, whatever you would call this, like a little hole in the middle. And then you would come back up, and it was just things did not feel the same anymore. So I had to do a lot of self-reflection about how I want to show up in relationships and the intention and the time that we give to relationships, and essentially taking like a good look at those around me and being more like, am I comfortable and can I be vulnerable in your presence without feeling any sort of fear of judgment? And so those were a lot of the relationships that I had to leave, but also relationships that people did not respect my boundaries. In 2026 is going to be the year where when I set a boundary, that boundary is staying there unless something changes and I take it down for whatever reason. But boundaries are to be respected, and if we want them to be respected by other people, we have to respect it ourselves first, because sometimes we set our own boundaries and then we find a way, or not, maybe not intentionally, where we self-sabotage and step out of line with our own boundaries. So all this to say that 2026 is going to be a big year for new beginnings, but also a big year for honing into like something that you've been wanting to get really good at and really be able to use that for later on. Maybe it's going to be a passion project that it could be the thing that generates income for you, for example, to do that the rest of your life. I think 2026 is the year that a lot of us are going to come back to the things that we were really passionate about, whether in childhood or adulthood, and really sticking with them and just living the rest of our lives continuing forward with this passion of ours that for whatever reason we had to abandon at some point.